to install Android Studio, and also an Android emulator. That is, if your machine can be able to handle that. However, you can be able to still run your applications locally on your Android device and using just a USB cable. So what happens is an Android application is user facing, so it's like a front end. So there might be some services running in the background, for example, but what you see is an interface. So it's the user interface, and it is made by texts, images, buttons, and menus, and much more. So basically, you interact with the user interface to do some action. So for example, you want to take a picture, you open your application, there's a button to take a picture, there's a button to delete a picture, for example, that you have taken, there's a functionality for cropping and stuff like that. So for pathway 3, you will learn so much more to do with user interfaces. So how an Android application is designed is you have the layout. It's like a container which holds all the views. So just to make sure that things are aligned however you want. So sometimes you want them to be horizontal, sometimes you want them to be vertical. As you can see here, this horizontal, going this way, it's vertical. So basically you have layouts and you have views. So layouts act as a container, and the views now is what you interact with. And these views are inside the layouts. So basically what happens is layouts are just a container to hold your views. So views include what? As I said, there is text, there is images, there are buttons, whatever, for example, you see in an Android application, more or less, they are just views inside a container, as we have said, which is a layout. So for each and every view, we have to define some properties, and that is the width, sorry for the typo, and the height. So these properties define the width and the height. I hope everybody knows what I mean by width and height. So these properties can be also expressed as dp, sp, and px. So these basically pixels. SP is mainly used for text, and DP you will find yourself using it for describing layouts, views, and much more. So here, this is just some documentation found at the Android developers website. So DP is a virtual pixel unit, and SP is an abbreviation for scale independent pixels. PX, as I hope everybody knows, is an abbreviation for pixels. So what happens is an Android device now takes the screen. So suppose your phone, and it expresses it in DPI, and 1 DP is equivalent to 1 pixel. So for example, if you know web development, you will find that you describe properties like width and height using pixels, whereas when it comes to Android, you express them using DP. So not very often you'll find yourself using pixels. And lastly, we'll be working with intents. So I'll explain what this is later as I finalize. And I just want this session to be as interactive. So let's get started. So The first thing that you guys need to do is head over to this link. Let me just paste it here. So basically, we learn how to install Android Studio. It's a very simple process. For example, I'm using Ubuntu, so that is why it picks up my download image as Linux. Depending on the operating system that you are running currently, it will show the correct download image for that. It's quite large, so if your internet connection is quite shaky, it will take some time. However, if I don't know if we should wait for people to install this or I should just go on and you can do this later. And also, by the way, you can also continue learning on the Android Study Jam. So for example, you can continue, and I hope you guys did the last one. So for Kotlin Basics, I taught you some few things here and there just to make it easier for you guys to really understand the content in here. At times it can be quite hard if you have never done any programming. So basically that's why I took my time and also started with Kotlin Basics. So today we'll be looking at layouts. So I'm just preparing you so that you can be able to do this code lab very easily and be able to understand what is happening here. So I guess I'll just also paste this chart. So I want to hear from you guys. Should we wait for you to install Android Studio, or should I continue and you can do that later? Anybody? Okay, so Steve is saying installing will take a lot of time, so I guess I'll just continue. And please, this is the link. You can just follow the simple instructions over here, and installing it is very easy. You don't really need to have anything else. You just need a machine and download this image. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just start my Android Studio, as you can see here. So basically, if it's a new install, over here there'll be nothing. So this is because I have some applications that I have built myself. And yes, so what you are going to do is to bootstrap a new project, for example. So basically, Android Studio gives you some templates which you can build on and not have to do this by yourself. So you can decide to choose what kind of application you want to build. So is it for a phone or a tablet, Wear OS, and also Android TV and or automotive. So we want to develop a phone application. So here we'll be choosing the empty activity. We don't want Android Studio to generate a lot of boilerplate code for us, which could be confusing at this time. So I'll go ahead and choose an empty activity and just click next. So I'll just give my application a name. I'll just call it hello world. Again, so you can choose a package name. So here I choose, it's like a domain, whereas now you put it from behind or backwards, where this will be like something like bilinganga.co.ke. This is just a domain. So this is how most of the applications are done. But you will find that as you start, you will find something like this. So the package name, you can put it as com.example.hello-world. And the language that I prefer is Kotlin. So for the minimum SDK, this defines some features that might be available for a particular version of Android. So as you can see here, let me tell Android Studio to help me choose, and you can see. So it lists starting from Android 4.0 all the way to Android 10, because that is what I have my highest uh, Android version that I have installed. So you can start over here. So this defines some features that are available in some Android versions. So for example, you'll find that there's something that is missing here that is here, and you'll find that there's something over here that is missing here. So these are just features that are added gradually by by Google, for example, and they just help you interact with, for example, I can say the fingerprint sensors. You'll find that not many Android devices have these version and also have a fingerprint sensor. So you'll find that you can't be able to access the fingerprint sensor. Okay, Steve. Yes. Okay. I have seen your message. So there is that, and we can be able to choose the lowest there is, but I don't believe there is anybody here with a phone running Android version 4.0, nor 4.1, nor 4.2, 4.3. So I believe this is the most common one starting from here going upwards. So I'll just choose KitKat, for example. And as you can see, let me open it again. As you can see, we have the printing framework, SMS provider, wireless and connectivity, multimedia, animation and graphics. So these are just the features found in this Android version. So when you click at Lollipop, you can see even more. So you find that Lollipop has the features for KitKat and more. So basically, it's called backwards compatibility, whereas now the features in here are also in here, but the features in here cannot be found in here. I hope it was not confusing, but that is what happens. So it's like you are gradually improving something. So it means what was improved in here cannot be found in here. So these are just the Android versions. So I said we choose KitKat, and yes, like that, and I'll just click finish. So at times Gradle takes some time to import the project. I hope today it will be fast. So what happens is all these is handled using the Gradle build tool. So Gradle handles the importation of dependencies and also the management, the updation, and also installing the code for the dependencies that you included. Okay, so the build was successful, and now we can kickstart adding some features here and there. So I'll go ahead and explain what is happening really. So what happens is Android is based on components. So basically, without these over here, if I can remove that, you'll just see an error pop up, and it will not know what on create is, for example. So we add that just to make sure that we extend our functionality from app compat activity. So that is a built-in class that we are given by Android to extend its functionality. And as I said last time, a class is a blueprint that defines the properties and the behavior of
Sorry for interrupting, but our sound doesn't seem to be. Could you maybe use the phone to the desktop?
okay. So okay, so I guess I'll just try to do that. So something like 18. Is that okay? Is that better? Yeah. So I hope it was okay. Let me just do this again, just to change the editor. So let me add this to say something like 18 and then apply. So I hope that is much better. I hope everybody now can be able to see. So as I was saying, is in Android we have components, and these components define what our classes are going to do. So for example, as I was saying, when you bootstrap the first an activity or an application from Android Studio, this is what you get. As I had said earlier, without this line, we get an error because we want to extend the behavior of app compat activity, and this defined inside the standard library of Android. So this is what is helping us to create an activity and also to draw um, graphics on top of, say, a layout. So as you can see here, we have an onCreate method. So this is the life cycle. This is the life cycle method, and there are so much more life cycle methods. We get to see them as we move on. So this is a life cycle method, and we just override because this is not ours. We just override it from this class. So suppose I want to check what this class is. You can see the various functions and methods in here. So we are just overriding this function on create. So this function is found inside this class, but you can't be able to change anything in here because it's protected and it's not ours. So basically, we extend to improve the functionality of our code. So for example, I can do that. So as I said, components. These are components. We want to extend it so that we can get more functionality from it. And these are lifecycle method we do on create. So this is only visible. Code in here is executed when you can be able to see the screen of the app. So basically, once you are able to see something, this method is immediately called. And as you can see here, we set the content view and we define the layout file. So this is the layout file here. And I'll just split this, close this. So this is the layout file. And inside here, we have this is a layout. So as I said, this is a container, and you can see inside the container we have a text view. So basically, this is used for displaying text in our app. And as you can see, we have hello world. So the container and the view. So this is the layout, and as you can see, it's called constraint layout. There are much more layouts such as linear layout. You can have card view, which also accepts another layout inside of it. You can also have grid layout, relative layout, linear layout, or what other layout, scroll view, and much more. So basically, I can't talk about them all, but we'll try and work with what we have here. So as I said, when we run our initial application, this is what you should be able to see. And by the way, we have an action bar included by default, in as much as you can see it here. So when I run the application, for example, you will be able to see it. So I just want to look at the folder structure, and at the top, when you select Android here, so I select Android. So at the top we have the manifest. So this is used to define some metadata for the application. For example, the application name and the activities inside of it, and also some intent filters. We'll be able to look at them later. So here we define the metadata for the application. For example, here is where we define the permissions that are required for our application. And as you can see here, the first activity, we identify it as a launcher. So with this line of code, we are able to see our application in the home view, for example, of your Android phone. So after that, we have the Java, and we have the package com.example.hello world that we used. So basically in here, you can input anything that you need. You can structure the code however you want it, but basically it has code for models, it has code for views, for fragments, activities, utility classes, constants, and stuff like that. So in here, this is where you put your business logic. These two, you can just leave them at the moment. So these are generated for you. So you can have Android tests. So these are used to test the UI. So these are used for unit testing. And now we have the resource folder. So in here you have drawables. So you can add images inside of here. You can add layout resource files. And in here now, you can add now the actual layout. So here, a drawable is different from a layout in the sense that for a drawable, it can't have containers, for example. That is the layout, for example, that we saw, for example, like this, the constraint layout. So inside of here now, this is where you define, this is where your activity layouts will be. Also, your fragment layouts will be here, and much more. In anything to do with a layout, you'll find that sometimes you create some custom layouts to be used, for example, in recycler views. So for MIP maps, these are used for putting the different icons. So for different pixels and sizes. For example, as you can see, we have HDPI, MDPI, etc. So the same case applies for that. So basically, in here, you put the icons for your application. But don't get me wrong. So these for the launcher only. For icons, you'll be able to put them inside here because it's drawable. So you can have SVGs, PNGs, and also any other drawable that you might have, PNGs and much more. So for the values, this is where you define colors for your application. As it says, this is where you define strings, and this is majorly used for best practices, mainly, and it's because you want your application to be translated to more than one language. So you want to have all your strings inside of here, and for you to create a new strings resource file, for example, you want your application to be in Swahili, you can just duplicate this and provide the language. So for the themes, basically we have this layout file over here, and I won't look much into that. That can come later. So as I want to do, I just want to build the application and of course run it on my Android phone, because I don't have enough memory for running it on an emulator. So I hope this doesn't take long. I could have optionally clicked on this, but I didn't have, I had not linked my phone to my computer. So I just went ahead and built the application, and then I'll be able now to run the app. So this process usually takes a minute or two, depending on how fast your machine is. But so I'm using a tool to share my screen, my phone screen over here. So I'll link it in the description later if anybody is interested. Just like that. And I'll wait for it to build and you can be able to run it. Okay, so I can be able to run the application now. Right, now it will install the application. after building it. Yeah. And there it is. This is your first application without even writing any code. You can be able to see we have a working application, and you can see the text hello world. I believe it is very small, and we can be able to change that now using the properties, for example, in the layout file. So basically, this is what happens when you choose an empty activity. This is the bare bones, and we haven't really added anything to the application. And as I was saying, we get this bar over here by default. So you can also be able to disable it using the themes over here. So yeah, we are going to do that later. So as I'm saying, we can be able to increase the font of this hello world over here, and as you can see, it is centered in parent. So basically what happens in constraint layout, it allows you or it gives you much more flexibility compared to other layout files, other layout or other layout containers, for example. And it allows you to, so for example, you can also choose to remove that, and you can also switch this to split to design or code itself. So I can be able to remove that, and you can see it goes to the bottom. I can also remove the bottom one, and I can also remove this one and that one. So what I can do, I can just drag this over here and say we want it at the top. But you'll find that most of the times you don't want your text to be you want some margin around the text, and you don't want it to be exactly where the layout starts. So for example, you can click on this, and I can be able to add, say, 16 BP, and over here I can be able to add 16 BP. And as you can see already, so it pushes it to the right and downwards 16 dp and 16 dp. So these like 16 pixels, 16 pixels. And as I said, we can be able to split this. So for example, we want to improve or to increase the text, so we can come here and you can say text, and you can be able to see all the properties that you can do for that. So for example, I want to put it at as 18 sp, or I can do it maybe say like 32 maybe, so that is big enough. And also while we are here, you can change the color and just make it black, because now it's kind of gray. So when I rerun this, you can see our application will move this text from here up to the top. So you will find yourself using more of constraint layout because of the flexibility that it offers. And as you can see, what is here is now here. So you can change the color, you can change the font type, you can change so many things, and you can also make it say you want it to be bold. So we can say the text type, we want it to be italic, bold, or normal. So we can put it as bold, and when again we run this, we'll be able to see the text in a bold fashion. So a view. So a view can be anything that you want. So for example, it can be a button, it can be text that you want to show, it can be a drop-down menu, it can be really anything, whatever you see inside an application is a view generally. So, and the view needs to be inside a container for it. Now, you see, if it's not anchored this way, so for example, when I remove the constraint on this text view, so, okay. So as you can see, this now is bold, as I showed you. So for example, when I remove this constraint over here, so that way and that way. So if you come over here and check what so Android Studio will tell you, by the way, this view is not constrained. It only has design time positions, so it will jump to 00 at runtime unless you have the constraint. So you can't be sure of where this thing will be. So it's for you to define really where you want it to be. So I want it to be horizontally in parent and vertically in parent. So the good thing about Android Studio is that you have this design tool, and also you can use code. So for example, if I wanted to do that, I can come over here and just do it by pointing out the layout. We want the constraint bottom to bottom off and stuff like that. So for you to access a view in our code, for example, over here, what you need to do, you need to provide an ID. So for example, you want to say, this is our string. And for you to change it dynamically from your code, you need to provide an ID. So we can do that later. So let me show you what else kind of view we can have over here. So we can have a button, for example, and let me wrap the contents just like that. And now you can put a text. So, and by the way, for each and every button, for example, and because we are using Material UI, even if I put the text as small case, it will appear in caps. So for example, I say hello. And as you can see right there, it's in caps. So we don't really need to take care of that. And we can also give this an ID. So we can do that and we can call it BTN. So with this now, for example, we want to put it right under this, you can just take the constraint over here and drag it over there. And for example, we want to say it to match the width of the text over here, and we can put it that way. But you see how it is now, it doesn't match the width. So the good thing about a constraint layout is you can specify the width and you can say it's 0 dp, and automatically you see this expanding. And for example, you want to increase the margin, the top margin of the button, so you say margin top, and you say you want something like 16 dp, and you can see you have created some space in here. So for the text view, for example, you want some padding. So margin is different from padding in this sense. So for example, when I say I want to do a padding of 10 dp, so as you can see, this creates, it's like an inward space, whereas margin, it's like an outward space. So for margin, it makes sure that there's anything that will be surrounding this will be, but for padding, it's like I want some space for myself, whereas margin, I want some space for this view. So there is that. We can be able to see hello, and when I launch this, now we can be able to see we have a button. So this is also a view, and for each and every view, it has a visibility. For example, we don't want the button to be visible, so we can do some visibility, and we can say it is invisible. So let me find the first code of first. So we can say it is invisible, and as you can see, you can't see anything. But this button cannot go down this way because there's something blocking. So for gone, for example, you say we want it to be gone, so it will disappear, and this now button can the text now can go downwards without pushing anything below it. So let me undo that. So, and there is also After gone, there is visible. So at times you want to show something if some condition is true or false, so and etc. So yep, showing what we had done. So you can see we have our button. So this is the view, and we have hello world. This is also a view. So for each and every view, there are some functions that you can call on them. For example, when we want to click a button or we want to click the hello world. And as I said, for you to access anything from our activity, we need to define an ID. So what we really do over here is we want to define our button. So for example, I want to say val button, and this declaration for a variable. And by the way, we don't need to specify the type over here. Just bear with me, and we can say find view by ID, and now here we need to specify, and because we know it's a button, we can just do that and import it just like that. And yes, so inside of here we need to pass the ID, so we do R. So this to get our resources inside our file, and we want to access the ID, and we want also to access btn. So this way, we can be able to even change the text. So for example, I want to access the text, so btn.text, and I want to change it to, we said hello, so we can say hello, and I add an exclamation mark. So as it is here, it doesn't have an exclamation mark, and it's because we defined the hello over here. And as I said, doesn't really matter if it's caps or capitalized or lowercase automatically, because of material UI, it will become capitalized. So I can just try and run this and just see if we have a change. So my phone keeps. And as you can see, we have overridden what was in here. So programmatically, you can override. So basically, this we define a button, and we can do the same for our text. For example, we can just declare another val, and we say our hello text, which is equals to, we just want to again find the view by ID, and we pass because we know it's a text view. We can do that, and again we need to pass the ID, so our resources, and then we want to access an ID, and we want to access the text. So if I can't remember, let me just confirm just to be sure. Oh, it needs to say hello, so that will have thrown an error. Yeah, so there's that, and I can also say hello text, and then suppose we want to set the text to something, so we can just say changed from code. Initially it's saying hello world, but we can be able to change the text programmatically using the view itself. And as you can see, this method is quite self-explanatory. You can see it's saying find view by the ID. So we want to use the ID to find it. But how it's done now in a more professional way, nowadays we use something called data binding or view binding. So view binding or data binding. So this is the old-fashioned way of doing things, but yeah, we can also do some data binding or view binding. So basically, this allows you to remove the necessity to call things find view by ID everywhere. but you can just look at that. And as you can see, you can change even the text programmatically from here. And so it even defeats the purpose of you having to define the text itself over here. So you can just remove this. However, for development purposes, you see, for example, you wanted to see how a view will look like. So we can just leave it there for development purposes. Another thing that you can do, most of these texts, what happens is they need to be added to the strings file, so that, as I said, it's used majorly for translation of the application from one language to another. So, for example, you just give somebody who is fluent in Swahili a list of all your strings. So, for example, what I can do over here, I can just define so string name, and I want to say hello. And I can just say, and then I just put hello here. So now, instead of passing the fixed text, I can be able to access this using that string. And then I can say I need to access hello. And trust you me, it works the same way. So far we have looked at a button, a text view, and a button, of course. So suppose we want to include an image inside our view, for example, we can just go ahead and you can guess it from the convention, the naming convention. As you can see here, we want some text, we just do text and then add view. But for the button, we just leave it like that. So for example, I want to have the image as 300 dp, and the height is 300 dp. And so here we want to include a source, which I will do later. So for you to even show an image, for example, as you can see here, you need to constrain it to the top of the parent, and then we constrain it there, and just like that. So there is that, and we can also add. So for example, I want to go to the design and add 16, a margin of 16 pixels, for example, so that it looks better. So I have an image inside. I had downloaded earlier. So for example, if I may, let me access it. And here, so you can go to downloads. So yeah. So for example, I have this image, and the folder that we are going to include it in is the drawable one, because I said here you can include PNGs, JPGs, SVGs, and also XML drawables, for example. So what I can do is I can just drag this and just put it inside of here. Yeah, yeah. I want it to be like that, and I want it to be in the drawable folder. Okay. And as you can see, we have it here. So inside the source, we can access the drawable using at drawable, and as you can see, it is that. So what is happening is we would wish for our image to fit the whole view. So for here, we do a scale type, and I can say center crop. And as you can see now, it has fitted as we would have wished the whole view itself. So you can even decrease the dp. So if you want to do it as 250 dp, and then you say this 250 dp. Yeah, so there's that. So, and when we run our application now, we should be having an image inside of it. So this is a view, this is a view, this is also a view. And by the way, now we can look at the linear layout. This is something also that you'll find yourself using very many times, for example. But the constraint layout is the most common one, and it's the most recommended layout to use because of the flexibility. But at times you find that linear layout sorts you out what you want to do. So we also have a grid view, so you can be able to show a grid of items, for example. And as you can see, we have an image, we have the text, we have the button. As simple as that. And how to access a drawable, you say at drawable. How to access a string, you say at string. So what I can do, for example, I want to create a layout, for example. So let me put it over here. So I want to create a linear layout, just like that. And then I can say, because I'm not sure how the height or the width, I can just say wrap content and also wrap content. And I can just give it an ID. For example, if you ever need to access anything from it. And by the way, you can name this using camel case, or you can also use underscore. So whichever you feel like, for example. So as it is, a container can have other things. A container can have a container inside of it, and it can also have some views inside of it. But a view at times cannot have any other thing inside of it. So for example, you can see we have a closing tag over here. And when I try to say I want to insert something like, so I just make it extendable. So when I say I want to insert something like a text view, you can see outright you can't have it and it's not allowed. So a view at times you'll find that some views, apart from the ones you have created yourself, they cannot allow you to have other views inside of them. So you can only create a view inside a container. This applies for the image view, the text view, the buttons, all types of buttons, by the way, all types of text views and all types of image views. So, but for a linear layout, this is another container. And as you can see, we have a container, and then we have some views, and then we have another container. So for example, I can just do it like this. And for example, let me give it, let it match the parent for, and I can say this to have 200 dp, so that you can be able to see it. So there is that. I can give it horizontal constraints. Okay, so there is that. So this is the linear layout, for example, and inside the linear layout we can have a text view now, and we can also have a linear layout again, but at times it is not recommended because of the performance of the application. When you nest too much layouts, it really reduces the speed of the application, because it needs to draw a lot of graphics, and thus it makes the application slow. So you can just have a text view, and you can just have the contents, and you can have the text. Yes, that. And I can also have another text view. Have contents. You can say the text. No. So by default, the linear layout behaves in a horizontal kind of way. So as you can see here, let me increase the fonts. So size, I can have say something like 22 SP. You can change the color, text color. And you can have it as black. And I can just copy this. As you can see, behavior. And let me just wrap this. that it reaches where the contents are. So the initial behavior of a linear layout is horizontal, but we can change that. We can say the orientation, we want it to be vertical, and it changes it from horizontal to vertical. So you can leave it just like that, and just have it like that. So for you to be able to distribute these two texts equally, horizontally, for example, what you can do is there's another property called layout width. Weight that is, and we can say it is 1. And as you can see, it oppresses the other one, and we also need to change this to 0 dp. Next thing you can do, you change this to 0 dp. Then, as you can see, we need to define the layout weight, and we can say 1. So what happens is Android divides these two layouts. So we have the layout as 1, and this is 1. So for both of them, it's 2. So it divides them equally, 2. So it's like we have some blocks. So we have 2 blocks, and we put the first one inside the first block and the other one inside there. And you can also center the text. For example, you want to center. So we can say text alignment, and we do it as a center. So it's at the center, and I can copy this and bring it over here like that. And as you can see, we have a linear layout inside of the constraint layout, and we have some views. And inside the linear layout, we can have some more views, and we can be able to distribute them equally for the width. So yeah, another uh, view that I would like to show you guys, for example, is I don't think if the other ones are mandatory, because we'll just work with them at a later date, because I think these are the most basic. And so okay, so I can just do another text view just to show you that we can have um, some more properties included inside the text view. So we can say we want to have the contents, and this text I'll have to define it inside the strings. So I'll just say Lauren. So I can just go to the Lorem Ipsum generator, and I'll just generate a very large paragraph, and just paste it over here, just to show you some more features of the text view. So, I just look for some generator. So anything is okay. So I don't want paragraphs. I just want one paragraph, and I can just generate. And let me just copy this. Close that, and just paste it here. So these are very long string, for example. So I can just say I want to access string. And I want to say Lauren. So I want to put it below the linear layout, just like that. And I want to change the text color to black, and I can change the text size to 15 SP, for example. So as you can see, the text has how many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So at times you don't really need that much. So for example, you can say lines, the maximum lines that we need. So for example, you can put 5. And then, as you can see, it leaves some weird stuff over here, and we just can add some ellipse, and we want to add it as. So as you can see, it tries and adds these 2 dots. So let me minimize this. So just by adding that property, we can just tell somebody there's some much more information. So for example, you can tell them to navigate to another screen, for example, and be able to read all that. So that is another feature that we have for streams, and there is much more. And basically, let me just add this. Define the margin, start, margin, end. So we define these as margin, and we need to put this as 0 dp for it to take effect. So we need this as start. So the left side is the start, the right side is the end. So that is why I've put that, and I can also do a margin bottom. So you leverage the code completion for Android Studio. Instead of you having to type all that, Android Studio can do it for you. I just wanted it to be a margin top. Yeah. So there's that. Other views include, for example, you want to input some text. So we want to have an input layout, for example. For that, you can have an edit text, for example. You can say the width to be wrap content, and you can just put the hints. Then you can just give it an ID name. So basically, this allows you to enter some text. So let me just do it like this, like that, and also like this. And you can also, now instead of that, we do 0 dp. So telling it 0 dp, you just tell it to match the constraint. So yeah, and we can also do a margin start of 16 dp and a margin end of 16 dp. So with this, it allows us to get some text that the user can input. So let me also do a margin. So yeah, with this you can get some text, and for example, we say we want to change this text according to the input provided here. We can do that programmatically. So for example, because I have this, I can just go to my main activity, and I can just say val bit text. So I can name it name it is equal to find the view by ID, and you just provide the name. So for example, the class name is edit text. So that is what I'm going to provide over here. Edit text, just like that. And we provide the ID, so r.id, and we do the name. So for us to get the name out of this, so if the user hasn't inserted anything, you can just leave it as it is. So you can just do some validation. So we want to say name et dot text then we do that to string. So you can just say the name. So for this, so for example, we want when we click the button, we set the name equals to that. However, I haven't planned this UI very well, but it's for demonstration purposes. So we want to enter a name over here. When we click this, it sets the name over here. So we can say hello, somebody. So we have the name. And instead of setting this over here, you can just do that. You can just start the button as hello. That's okay. Okay. So use have on click listeners. So basically what happens is when running on create, it sets up a listener for that view, and whenever there is an event, for example on click, so when we want so that when we click this, we want to set up a listener where it will take the name from here and also update things over here. So basically a listener just waits for an event to occur, and the event needs to happen to our button. So we can just say button, and then we say set and click listener, and you select the one with the lambda function. So, and you can see over here we are given a view. So we can say the view, so just like that. But most of the time you don't really need the view itself, but it is accessible. So what we want to do is we get the name from this. So you can just cut this over here and put it over here, and we want to set the hello text to. So we want to say hello text to. So we can also create another variable and say hello, and we can just say this equals to hello, and we want to say name. But then there are no validations that I have done to make sure that this name is not empty, otherwise the application will crash. So from that, now we want to set the hello text equals to hello over here. So when I launch the application, and by the way, if there is anybody with a question, feel free to ask. Okay, so I can be able to insert the name over here. So I can say Jen, and just like that. When I click this, it should say hello, Jen. And as you can see, so by default, the listener stays. It's like something that will be set up until the application now is closed. That's when the listener gets terminated or cancelled. Otherwise, it listens all the time. So, for example, when I say Jane, just like that, no, okay, sorry. So when I remove the Jane, as I said, there should be an error, and you shouldn't see anything. So this is not the behavior that we are looking for. Otherwise, it returns empty, an empty string. So, hello John, or hello something. So basically, that's it for the basic views and buttons, the layouts, and I have showed you the most common um, layouts that you will work with most of the time. But the constraint layout is a very powerful layout. This is also what is used to animate some views. For example, it can change to a motion layout just with this, and you can do some awesome stuff with the constraint layout. So, and I can do this. Let me remove this. Okay. This needs to be 16 dp. Remove this. So that I just set it over here. Bottom. Put it as 16. Yeah. So I was just creating some room. Yeah. Just to show you some other things. So as you can see, this is our parent layout. Inside of it, we have some image view, we have some text view, we have some button, and then inside of it, we have another layout, which is a linear layout, and it can be either horizontal by default, or you can change the orientation to vertical if you wish. And inside of it we can have some text views, and inside of it we can also have some other layout if you wish. So it really depends with what your use case is. And then we have some large text that we specify the length of uh, the lines that we need. So, and we have native text. So majorly these are what we'll be working with in Android, and today was just an introductory part of what um, you will be working with, for example. So if I can go back to my presentation, there's something that I said I'll show you guys. So there's this intents. So basically what an intent is, it's a messaging object you can use to request an action from another app component. And as I said, in Android, we deal with components. So intents have three fundamental use cases. You can start an activity, you can start a service, and you can also deliver a broadcast. These two are some very complex topics which we can cover in future. So there are two types of intents, the explicit intents. So here you know what you want to call. For example, there are implicit intents. For example, when you want to share a photo from your application, and suppose your application doesn't have the ability to do so, you can use some other application to do it. So for example, this happens when say you want to send something from your phone to another person. So um, most of you have the app called is it Sender, for example. I don't know if I'm saying it well. So suppose you want to send something from your file manager to somebody, and when you say share, what pops up is a list of applications that can be used to share um, something. So for example, let me show you just an implicit intent, how it looks like. So, so suppose I want to go to my file manager, and suppose I have some documents over here. So just want to look for some file, some basic file that is okay. Yeah. So when I long press over this and I say I want to share, so you notice that the file manager doesn't have the functionality to share something. So it shows you a list of applications that can be able to handle that. So WhatsApp is one of them, Truecaller and stuff like that. All apps you can be able to see. These are some implicit intents that the file manager can use to be able to help you share whatever you need. So that is what an implicit intent looks like. But for an explicit intent, majorly, you will be using it to call a component inside your application. So for example, you want to navigate from this screen to another screen. So there, it's where you now include the explicit intent. So this is where an explicit intent comes in. So for example, what we can do, we can just add another activity. So I'll just come over here, right click, and then I can say new, and I can say activity. So I want to start with an empty activity, and I can just say hello activity. So we can generate the layout file, yes, and it's not a launch activity, and the source language should be Kotlin. So we say finish, and I can stop the application running on my phone currently. So Android Studio will generate a new activity for us as well as the corresponding layout resource file. And inside here, all we have, for example, is just a layout. Now it's blank, so we can just insert a text view over here. So content, and we'll say text, and we'll say I can just put hello, and you can define the constraint for the bottom up, but there is no need of you doing that. You just come over here, you select this, minimize this, delete this. So you just click there, and we want to put it horizontally in parent and vertically in parent. So, and we can, for example, increase the width, the size, the text size. And you can say 40 SQ, and you can change the text color. So we want to move from this activity. We want to move from this activity to another activity. So for example, we can just add another button over here. So we just add another button. And just do this like that. And we can say wrap content, and you can say the text. And just say go to hello. And I just want to put it at the bottom here. So pull that to the bottom, just like that, just like that. So with that, we are good to go. We can just give it an ID. So we can say go underscore to underscore home. Hello. And we want to navigate from this to here. So what we can do, we can use an intent to start an activity. So basically, we can define, we can initialize our button over here. So val, so we call it btn, so we can say go to btn, and we can say find view by id, and we can say just button, just like that. And we can say go to button, and we set an on-click listener, just like that. And now here it's where it gets awesome. So we need to define an intent. So we can just say val intent, and we can say intent like that. You import the android.content, and you can see we need the context, and we can also define where we want to go. So we can say this is the context that we want, that we have, and where do we want to go. For example, we want to navigate to the hello activity class. So using because we extended this, there is a method given to us, so we can just say start activity and just pass the intent. And trust me, when we do that, we are going to navigate to the other activity. So I don't know where the error is. Oh yeah, I need to pass the ID. So I will say go to hello. Yeah. So when I run the application, we should be able to navigate from the first activity, the main activity, to the hello activity. So I'll go ahead and click on this, and hopefully we'll be able to navigate. Oh, and you can see we started another activity. So when I go back here, but when I click this, I call it, I navigate to the hello activity. And so here you can add more things, whatever you need really. Yeah. So that is what I wanted to cover in this session. At least now you have the basics, and as you cover the next unit for layouts and navigation. So here you can be able to navigate across one screen to another. So basically you have you can understand what they are trying to say, and I believe you guys have learned something, and I guess this will be the end of the session. Anybody with a question, please feel free. As I said, you can download Android Studio. I posted the link. Yeah. Anybody with a question? I hope I was clear enough, and I hope what I have said is was understood. That is. And by the way, I'll post the code to GitHub, so you can be able to access it. So I'll just do it once I finish here.
So, as you are talking about the resource,
We can't be able to hear you.
I didn't get the difference between both meetings.
Okay, so Phyllis, can you please type what you are trying to say, because there is a lot of noise coming from your end and I can't hear what you are saying. I don't know if it's only me or there is anybody else with that issue. Okay, so that's a good question. So as I said, for the drawables in here, for a MIP map, basically you can be able to specify the different uh, quality and the pixels that you can provide. And as you can see here, we have an IC launcher. So for example, I can open this and you can be able to see. So basically what it does, it's just a folder for Android that is used for putting your icon, for example. So if I may, so you see this icon over here. So basically, you can be able to specify the size for much bigger screen size. For example, you'll find that somebody with a smaller phone, the icon, this icon, for example, and I can just show you where it is over here. Hello, I'm passing it somewhere. Where is it? Okay. Just look here. So, for example, as you can see, um, and I don't know why it hasn't created an icon like this one. So basically what happens is the MIP map specifies the size of an icon. So it will specify if some are rounded, some are not rounded. So you can be able to specify the different sizes of your application icon and for the different sizes of the different screens that exist. So you can also put it in the drawables folder, but that is not the convention. And if I can try and show you over here. So when I say I want to add a drawable, for example, I can't be able to select the, the icon one. So for example, I want to add a MIP map. So you can be able to see, I can import it as a vector and it will ask you if you want to specify the different versions. And you can see the launcher has 6 versions. The launcher around has 6 versions and you can be able to specify that inside of here. So you can remove this. Basically, you can also include it, as I'm saying, you can include it here, but it's just a convention where you need to specify it over here. But even myself, I don't really understand it, but that's what is it, just for structuring the code better, I believe. I hope I have made that much more clear. Yeah. Anybody else with a question? Okay, so if there's nobody with a question, I guess that will be the end of the session. I hope you guys have learned something. And yes, so there is a question over here by Phyllis. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for anybody that, to everyone that took their time to attend. it really means a lot, and it shows that we are not doing this in vain. Thank you, and let's meet in the next session, where now we can start now building on something that really makes sense per se. But for today's session was just to show you how the different uh, views are declared and stuff like that. Yeah, thank you.